All right, I have broadcasted the workshop, so folks should start joining. Yeah, I see some attendees joining. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. We are waiting for another panelist, but I believe his talk is slightly later, right? In the okay,
That's right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so then that's okay. I think we'll just wait for another minute or two so folks come in and they kind of settle in, and then we'll start. All right, so it's 7:31 p.m. India time. Let's wait for another minute and then we'll kick start with the workshop. All right. In the interest of everyone's time, let me get started. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us, and we are really excited to present our second workshop in this workshop series related to REST APIs. This workshop is going to primarily be covering API building, querying with OData, and API testing. All of these concepts are, of course, important as you follow up with the introduction to REST API talk that we had some time before. I am really excited because this is our second workshop from the Education Guild post we set up as a DAO. And it is interesting to see that there is a lot of demand for technical topics. So we are quite excited to present the second in this series. Of course, we'll try to do more of these on similar lines. This workshop is presented to you by the Educational Guild at the Alchemist DAO. And without further ado, let me quickly introduce the speakers. We have three presenters, speakers for the day. The first one is Ravindra. Ravindra Naik, in fact, all three of them are Covalent Alchemists, and they are a great asset to our developer ecosystem as well as a part of the Educational Guild. Ravindra has been an entrepreneur and a full stack developer, and he's currently working with Maersk. You might be familiar if you attended his earlier REST API workshop as well. He has worked with several APIs in his vast experience and has built several projects using Covalent APIs themselves. Abhishek, our second speaker for the day, is also a Covalent Alchemist, and we are really excited to have him. He's a product focused engineering manager with entrepreneurial background. He has had about 9 years of experience in leading teams and building cloud SaaS applications. He co founded a fashion rental startup a few years back and ran it for 2 years before getting back to the corporate world. He's equipped with back-end and front-end development skills in variety of tech stacks and has worked on AWS and Azure. He has recently also worked on several hackathons on the blockchain front. Last but not the least, we have our shining front end developer Vikas. Vikas Pachori is our third speaker and presenter for the day. He's a full stack developer and a JavaScript specialist. He has been a part of several Covalent hackathons where he has made significant contributions to the front end space and he has expertise developing on several front end stacks and has extensively worked with Covalent APIs as well. So, this workshop would essentially cover three topics as mentioned in parts. So, each speaker would be doing their part for about 30 minutes, would say 20 to 20, 25 minutes, and we can have a small Q&A if required post that. But do keep posting your questions on the chat as well. As you have any questions, you can also post on the Q&A, and we would be happy to answer that. And yeah, do introduce yourselves on the chat, where you're joining us from and what you're interested to learn from this workshop. I have pretty much spoken for over 5 minutes now. I think I'm going to hand it over to the first speaker. Is that Ravi? Are you going to start the talk? Okay, great, awesome. So yeah, so let's start for the day.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Gyan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this call. So this call, as Gyan had mentioned, this is in continuation to our previous workshop, which was an introduction to the REST API. So I'll briefly try to touch like some of the key points that we had discussed in our previous call, and then take it from there, right? So I'll try to share my screen, and I hope my screen is visible by now.
Yes, we are. Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so as a part of this workshop, what we'll try to do is, like in our last workshop, we tried to cover what are RESTful services and what are some of the best practices, and when it comes to developing RESTful practices, RESTful services, and what are some of the things that you should avoid while building this, right? So, and we will try to take those learnings and try to build a simple web service, and we will try to use a powerful querying framework called as Odata, and we'll try to see how OData can help us build powerful queries and give access to develop various applications agnostic of the clients. And we'll also try to see how we can, once we build this APIs, and testing APIs are a critical part of any software lifecycle, right? So how we are going to use Postman or Newman to test these APIs and complete the lifecycle in itself, right? So that's the agenda for this call today, right? So without taking any more time, I'll get started with this workshop, right? So just a quick recap on what some of the things that we had covered in our previous workshop, in case you haven't joined the previous one, is like, what is REST service, right? All the RESTful microservices or web services represent the state of a particular database at any given point of time, right? So we perform all the CRUD operations: create, update, get and delete operations. You can perform all of them essentially through RESTful microservices, and we can get the state of a database at any given point of time through the RESTful web services. And as I had mentioned previously, it is HTTP protocol based. It is a web standard, and it is based on HTTP protocol, right? And most of the resource interaction with the resources is based on like resource based architecture, which means you would be interacting with a resource called as URI in this case, right? So URI is the one which is quite critical when you are interacting with when you are working with REST APIs. So it's important that you develop your URI in a readable way and in a developer friendly way as well, right? So that's also something that we will be trying to cover as a part of this workshop. And like any server client server based action, right? So even REST API, as I had mentioned earlier, like we have a client, we have a server, we have a database, and REST is an interface that creates and gives an ability for the REST clients to be able to communicate with the database or the business process, and to be able to give out a meaningful responses, and also get access to all the resources, and also an ability to modify them, right? So any REST server essentially will act on a particular resource and give out the necessary information as the clients have asked for, right? And yeah, I have also tried to cover on what are URIs, what are URLs, and we will also see in today's workshop on how a typical URI might look like, right? And what are the best practices when it comes to naming them as well. And different HTTP methods, like as mentioned, you are basically interacting with a database, right? At any given point of time, either you are adding a new entry to a database, you are updating an existing entry, or you're retrieving an entry, right? Or you're removing an entry altogether. So these are all the operations that you might be doing on a day-to-day basis. And these are some of the HTTP methods that we interact with, we use on a day-to-day basis, right? Post is to be able to add an existing resource. Put is to override an existing resource. Patch is to update a part of a resource, not the whole, not the whole response, not the whole resource, but a part of a particular resource, right? Get is to be able to retrieve some part of the information which is already present in our database, and delete is to archive, right? Or hard delete, whatever is the logical step for your application. And head, of course, is to receive or get the headers of a particular resource, right? So on a high level, these are some of the things that we had discussed in our previous call. So when it comes to building RESTful web services, so what are we trying to build today, right? Taking all the learnings from our previous call, what we will do today is take a simple case of developing an API for an e-commerce based application, assume, and we will only build part of it today, obviously, because of the time constraints and everything, right? And we can obviously use some of these learnings and build the rest of the components in a different microservices, right? So as a part of that, we will be building an APIs related to products. And obviously products also have some associated relationships, right? One of the relationships that we are going to cover is product reviews. And these are a couple of entities that will be interacting with, right? And product, as you would know, when you look at any e-commerce website, the product will have certain attributes like name, category, price, or like description, for example, right? And review might have certain attributes like title, description, who, user ID or email, or some sort of like identifier to know who actually posted this particular review, right? So this is what we'll be using, and these are the entities that we'll be using, and we'll be building a RESTful API today, right? And to be able to build this APIs, I'm actually using .NET Core and a Visual Studio for developing this APIs, right? So to be able to do this a little faster, I actually have an instance of the project already created, which has nothing, just that it has a project structure wherein we will create an API controllers, and any, like, it has a basic startup file, right, on how the URLs would look like and all that, right? So basic library is already preloaded. So yeah, I will probably get started by creating models that we had discussed earlier, right? So first thing is to be able to add models that we had discussed earlier, right? One of the model is product, and the other model is obviously product. So actually, to save time, I have actually created some of the structure beforehand, so I would probably go ahead and use that here. I will go over on what did I use, right? So I will go over this fields, each of these fields, and will try to explain like what I'm doing here. Okay. So here are two entities that as I mentioned, one is product, other is product review. Product has certain properties like what is a product ID, name of the, this is primarily for our database, right? So name of the product, description of the product, slug, which is the small URL that you'll have for the product, and the category itself, right? Uh, and internally, each of the product again has a reference to some of its reviews based on this particular product ID. And what are the product reviews look like? Like each of them will have title, description, email ID for the time being. Usually, like you would have an authentication user ID or something of that sort, but to be able to do it for this particular call, I'm just using email ID and when was it created, right? Of course, you could add a lot of attributes to this particular class, but just for the simplicity, I'm using some of these attributes for this particular workshop, right? So once you have defined what are the models that you will be working with, the next thing obviously is to create a database context, right? So I would go ahead and create a one more structure, we call it. So, and I actually have this study as well. So without wasting any time of yours, I'll go ahead and create one more class. Okay. So looks like I have to add one NuGet package. A step that I missed. So I would go ahead and add this particular framework. Okay, I think it would take a minute, and yeah, now it's added.
Ravindra, can you give some context behind what programming language you're using and how folks can set this up on their local system if they
Sure.
want to eventually?
Sure, yeah. As you can see, like this is Visual Studio. Visual Studio, I think it's a community version that I'm using. And programming language, I'm using C Sharp, and I'm using .NET Core. I'm not using .NET framework. I'm using .NET Core here, .NET Core 3.1. And yeah, that's, and in terms of using the database, I'm using in-memory database for the time being, right? I'm not using any explicit database like Mongo or SQL kind of database. Hello. There are certain issues with references. Maybe let me add another dependency which was missing, I guess, which is ASP.NET Odata. Okay. So I'm actually using NuGet packages, which is a package manager for .NET Core and ASP.NET. And I'm using this particular package called Microsoft ASP.NET Core.Odata, and I'm using a particular version which is 7.4.0 for this particular call. Again, it might take a minute for this package to be loaded to as a part of this particular project. So I'll in the meantime, I'll just quickly give you an overview on what I'm doing here, right? I'm trying to create an in-memory database, which is what I just added it here, saying that this is the in-memory database that I've created, and I'm using product context as a context, DB context for this particular scenario. And using that particular DB context, I have a set DB set that I created, which is on product, and using using this, I would be able to using this particular variable, I would be able to query on, like I would be adding to the list of products an instance of this particular resource, and we'll be working to update, to archive it, or to fetch a list of products, all on this particular DB set. So it just essentially creates a, instance of a database on my local machine in memory database, and I'm querying and updating on this particular DB set itself. So I think it's still taking some more time. So meanwhile, I'll try to add the other classes as well. So it would save some more time. So what I'm trying to do here is, since there would be no data initially, since we are creating a memory database, I'm dumping some initial data to load with, right? So, and to be able to do this, I have created some static objects and I'm using them in the product context when I said load products, right? So I'm creating an in-memory database, and I'm also preloading some of the existing data in for this particular call itself, right? So that's what I'm doing in this product data class. This might not be needed when you actually develop the APIs, but this DB context is something that you might be using. Right, saved. Hopefully this works now. What am I missing? Microsoft Entity Framework. Go. Okay. Looks like I added a wrong package, so which is why it is not able to load that particular instance. But yeah, I think this should fix the issue that I'm having now. Mm. Yeah, finally. Seems like some issue with my setup, so I'll use an existing setup, right? So I'll try to go over what are some of the things that I had developed, right? So yeah, so yeah, product context is what we had actually discussed before, right? We are using just DB context. There seems to be some issue with this particular DB context reference that I was using before, and product discrete is something we had actually discussed, right? So the next part is to be able to build this controller, products controller. So some of the things that we had discussed last time was to be able to create a meaningful route. So I had prefixed all the APIs to follow this particular route, which is API/v1, which is saying that this particular controller is to be able to version all like it's handling all the version 1 of the controllers, right? So obviously I could have used this particular v1 version on routes of a particular method, or even as a header in one of these methods. But for the time being, I'm actually using it as a part of v1 on part of this particular controller itself, right? So that's what I'm actually doing. And this controller actually represents whatever the controller name that I'm using here. So in this particular case, it is products. So the URL would typically start like API/v1/products for all the subsequent calls that subsequent methods that are present in this particular controller, right? Here, what I'm doing is I'm just taking the product context that I already have and using it as a part of the constructor. I'm just trying to set it as a part of the constructor, so that if I want to create some unit tests or integration tests, unit tests, I can do this using this particular constructor. And there are some methods that I'm actually doing in here, like one of I'll quickly show what are all the methods and how the URL will typically look like, right? So, certain actions like I'm adding a product, I'm updating a product and deleting a product, getting a particular product out of list of products, and getting all the products, list of all the products, right? So if you notice, these are HTTP GET methods. These two methods are HTTP GET methods, and I'm not using any route. I'm not using any routes here because I'm trying to get list of products anyways, right? So API v1/products would typically land up here. API/v1/products/uh, ID, in that case could be product/1 would route in here. It would handle this particular information like with this particular attribute, right? And post is when like you add to a particular resource, right? In this case it's product. And update is updating part. If you see, I'm using patch and not put, right? So I'm using patch to update a particular instance of a particular product. Like instead of updating all entire object, I'm just updating a part of it. And delete is obviously deleting that particular resource. So when you quickly, if you want to look at this code, all I'm doing is just getting the list of products, and using skip and limit, I'm fetching the available products. And if values are there, I'm just returning out the appropriate HTTP status codes. If not, I'm not returning any status code. And if you want to look at get product information, then you would see that if the value is there for a particular product ID, I'm returning out okay. If not, I'm returning not found, which is an appropriate status code in this particular use case, right? So similarly, like I'm doing some basic validations in here and sending out appropriate status codes whenever possible, and with a readable uh, exception messages and showing up in here, right? So without taking any more time, I will just quickly run this particular project on my local instance and show you what each of these methods would actually do, and how would a typical URL would look like, what would be the request and what would be the response, right? So yeah. So first thing, obviously, I think is to be able to get list of products. So if you want to understand what, as of now, there are no products, right? Because we haven't created any product as such. But let's say you add a particular product. In this case, like I'm adding fresh strawberries, then it would also call the existing preloaded function. And so yeah, these are some of the attributes that I had used to create a instance of a product, right? And some of the instances could be IDs for name of the product is strawberry, description is this, appropriates like what if it was Bangalore strawberries, and category I've defined as food, right? And method type is obviously post, because I'm posting a particular resource onto this particular server, right? And creating an instance of that particular product, which is what I said like would be the right parameter. And I'm using JSON as an exchange format, right? And whenever this particular information, like whenever it was able to create this particular product, it returned out saying that it is created, right? And it means that request has been fulfilled and the resource has been created and the database, right? I'm returning out with this particular status code, which is important in this case. And since it was created, there was no response body that had come along with this, but you can also throw up an instance of this particular body as a response in itself. So I chose not to do that. Now, if I want to call this get list products, you would see that the preloaded entries of some of these products are also coming up in here, along with the one that we just inserted in here, right? So all these values are actually getting called using the get call that we had just made, right? And yeah, I'm also trying to return the appropriate status code in this particular case as well, right? So 200, since we are able to fetch the resource, or we are able to address whatever the client has asked in this particular case, right? It is asking for to give us the list of products, correct? But in a typical website, you'll not have 4 or 5 products, right? You will have some hundreds and thousands of products, right? And you don't want to get all of them at one shot. Otherwise, this one is at a 1 KB, but you might end up getting a data size of about hundreds of MBs as well, right? To avoid that, you might typically do pagination on a list of products. So I do have a query which is ready in here, right? So what you will typically do is you'll just say skip first 4 and give me the next 5 or next 10 or something like that, right? So to do that, we typically end up using query parameters on the URL, and maybe we handle that in our code, right, as I had shown earlier. But since there are only 4 products that were there in our products list here, and I had done skip is equals to 4, we are showing now an appropriate status code in this case, right, which is 204. There is no content beyond this, right? But say I had done skip equals to 1, then I hope the first product is emitted, because ID equal to 1, the product which had ID equal to 1 is not now showing up. 2, 3, and 5 are now showing up because it has skipped 1, right? And if I do want to limit the number to maybe say only 2, then I could choose to do that. And maybe now in this case, I will get this particular entry and this particular entry and this particular API call, right? This is how you will be able to save a particular product query on a particular product, and then to be able to interact with a particular product or product reviews for that matter. So since we have created for one particular entity, so we can do that for any number of entities in any microservices that we would be working together on, right? So yeah, I would probably stop it here for the time being, and would let the team know if there are any questions. I would like to take them now, or you can also shoot up in the Q&A section. Otherwise, I'll probably hand it over to Abhishek if there are no questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ravindra. So far, I have not seen any questions on the Q&A section. So yeah, we can probably continue. As we get the questions, we can probably take them at the end if required.
Right. Yeah, hi everyone. This is Abhishek here. Thanks, Ravi. And Gyan, let me quickly share my screen and we'll continue from the presentation. Okay, I hope you are able to see my screen and the presentation shows up with a querying with Odata slide. Is it visible?
Yes, sorry.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jan. So, what Ravi covered is, how REST APIs are built, how it works, right? What all it covers. What I'm going to cover is a bit more, focused idea of it, like, how do you do a lot of querying with the data, right? So, think of REST API as a architecture or a concept, right? So, like for example, take English literature, right? I mean, it's a concept, it's an idea, it's thought. But as soon as you put an examination to it, right, it becomes a protocol, right? I mean, there's a specific set of things that are expected out of it, and if you don't follow it, you lose marks or it doesn't work, right, and things like that. So while REST API is considered to be an architecture which kind of used in a huge is used across different products, right? OData is a protocol on top of it. There are many different ways to build RESTful web services. OData is just one of them. right? So what the protocol defines is a set of rules and regulations and ways of doing things, right? Which can become a standard. And so as soon as it becomes a standard, right, there are a lot of people using it. And so there are a lot of community tools that gets developed on it, right? So whether it's client codes or reusable codes, SDKs and things like that. So that's where OData comes into the play. And uh, one of the most useful value additions that OData provides out of the box is querying capabilities, right? So we'll look into that a bit more. But to talk about OData, so it's a short form for Open Data Protocol, right? It's an application level protocol for interacting with the REST services. Just like I said, right? I mean, REST is just an architecture. It doesn't say that you have to return, for example, 201 status code if you are creating an object. It doesn't, stop you from returning a 200, right? If you want to return a 200, okay, that's totally fine. REST is not stopping you from doing that, but OData does. OData has a strict protocol when it says, if you're returning some data, the status code is going to be 200 okay, right? So defines a set of best practices based on those protocols that it put forward, right? And it's very easy to build queries to retrieve the desired data from OData, and we'll look into that, a bit more into the workshop as we go along. So what are the advantages? It enables broad integrations, across clients. So, if you're building a web application, which is also a mobile application or a mobile app, right? There may be different needs for you in terms of how you retrieve the data, how much data is retrieved, right? And what kind of visualizations you want to do, right? So OData can out of the box help you with those. Uh, One of the most important value addition is with filtering and selecting. So think of a huge data set, right? For example, consider all the users in the world. There's like 7 billion users. And if you have that in the database, it's not feasible to pull all the data at the same time. I mean, it's going to be in gigabytes, and your network probably won't support that much data, or your system might not support that much data. So being able to very quickly reduce the set of data that you're pulling from the database, right? But getting the desired outcome that you're looking for, is very important when you're dealing with huge amount of data. And OData can out of the box help you with that, right? You don't have to write complex queries or complex code to get there. You can just write a very simple querying with OData to fetch those data. The queries that we form are very much human readable. You'll see queries like, if ID is equals to 1, give me all the data. Or if name contains this words, return me only those data where those filters are matched, right? Or name is equal to this, and then give me the data for those. So, and the most important thing is then, so you have so much data, instead of writing the code and limiting the querying capabilities for the customers, you can just let the customers build their own queries, given how they would like to read the data. So that's the passing of ownership of client's data to the client, instead of we handling and limiting it in some way or the other. All of these together come together and gives you the benefit of reducing the time to development and maintaining the code that you write. So you write less code, you maintain less code, and so you get to the release faster, right? You get the product out faster than you would otherwise. So some of the samples here, these are just URL samples to give you an idea. So here, if you see, Ravi talked about products. Now let's say you only want those products where the name is equal to milk, right? So you would write a query like this. Dollar filter is the naming convention in OData. It says that, these are the filters that the client is providing, right? So the second one is name is equal to milk and the price is less than 2.55. So LT represents less than, and you can use it for any, numbers or values that you want to filter on. So similarly, similar to LT, you have GT, which is greater than, right? So expand equal to category is like, so you have the base data and then there are navigational properties or relationships. For example, product and product reviews, right? So by default, you get the product data. If you want to expand further and get more enriched data out of that entity, then you can use the $expand command, right? $select reduces your response size. It limits the set of data you get. So let's say you're building a mobile app, right? In a web app, you have have the space available to you that you can show a lot of data, but in a mobile, you are restricted by the space. And so you may want to just show minimum data like name and number of reviews, right? But not the reviews itself. But on the web, you might want to show the reviews as well. So you can use select to, limit the data you retrieve and show only those, so that it speed up your API performance. Then there is order by and top and skip, right? So order by is on by default, you can order by IDs or names or anything else, ascending and descending order. And then you can do a skip and top to kind of paginate the records if there are a lot of records, right? You can get the first 100 records, then get the next 100, next 100, and so on. So I think this covers the brief about what is OData and how we are going to use it and what it's going to look like. Right. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take at this moment, or please feel free to post it in Q&A session, and I'll take it towards the end.
Yeah, Abhishek, I think you can continue. At the moment, I don't see any questions in the Q&A section.
All right, thanks, Gyan. So moving back to the project and continuing from where Ravi left off, right? So it's a similar structure. You have the controller, you have the context, you have the data, and then you have the models, right? So coming back to the controller, so earlier we had two controllers, the get all products and the get product, right? So these are the custom code that let's say Ravi wrote for querying the data, right? But there is a better way of doing it with OData. So what we are going to do is we're going to comment this out, not use this querying, but set up another querying of our own, which is basically saying enable query on this method, right? Get all the products and give it to this OData handler, right? Which is going to handle the querying for you, right? Post this, one more change we are going to do is there's no need for route, right? OData handles the route itself, but we have to tell that, this particular controller is now a OData controller, not a normal controller. So as soon as we say, this controller inherits OData controller, OData controller handlers will know that, there's a new controller created. I need to handle, whatever request is coming for those controllers and methods, right? So what we are doing here is the class becomes the products controller inheriting the OData controller, right? And then we are adding a method where we are saying, enable query on this method, so that whatever querying we use with OData labels and conventions, this particular attribute will be able to handle those. So, one more change that we got to make here is register this OData. So what we say is we are adding the OData to the .NET Core application, and then we are setting the route as OData. So what it means is the URL now becomes /OData/products or your entities, and we'll see that in a minute. The dependencies are the same, right? So I'm using the Microsoft Entity Framework Core in memory as an in-memory database, and I'm using the ASP.NET Core OData, which is provided by Microsoft as the OData controller package. All right. So now coming to just running this service. So not how a NetCore app and a Net Framework app is different. Just to give a small context on that is a NetCore application comes with inbuilt container, where it can run the service, right? So typically you may have heard a Java application running on a Tomcat or a Jetty, or some application running on Kestrel or IIS, right? But by default, a NetCore application can run on Kestrel automatically. So we'll just start the service, and what it'll do is, it'll register all the controllers that we have created. It'll run, compile the code, and it'll start a service for you. So OData is our initial route. So let's go here, and you'll see that just by hitting OData as the base route, it'll give me some information that, okay, these are the two entities that are registered in your application. So product and product reviews. Right? And what is the URL? The URL is products and the URL is product reviews. So even before reading any documentation or anything, the user or the client can know that, how can I browse through the data and get everything that I want. Right? So if to delve a bit further, we can do a /$ metadata, which will give me further information about those entities. So we have two entities, product and product review, right? And then what are the properties that are available in these two entities is listed here, right? It further lists that, there is a container of products, right? And that product has a navigation property on reviews, right? And this is the path. So using this, once you understand how the URLs are formed, using this, a client can easily form all kinds of paths and URLs to retrieve all the data that is available in the system. So let's start at product. So what we'll do is we'll do odata slash products, a plural, and it'll list me all the data that is available in the context. Right? So these are the 3 entries that I've added by default, and it shows up here. So let's start with something very basic. Let's say there are more data than just 3 items. Let's say there are a billion records. Now, obviously, I'm not going to pull in all the billion records into the screen, but I still want to see, okay, how many records in total are there in the system? So I can just say $count equal to true, and this will give me the data along with the count in it. Okay, so this is the first item. Now let's go a bit further into filtering the data. So we'll add $filter and we'll run through a few filters. So let's say ID EQ1. So this gives me one entry which matches the ID equal to 1. If I want to enter, let's say ID equal to 10, which does not exist, it is going to give me a empty list. If I now say ID equal to, ID EQ2, I see the record showing up here. And now let's say, for this particular product, I also want to see the product reviews. Right? So then I do a and. So we do a filter and then we also do a expand. And we say, give me all the reviews. Right? And so for this product, you see the reviews showing up as well. There's only one review here, so there's just one showing up. All right. Now let's also do, a small filter on name and some other properties. Filter equal to name EQ. So when we are doing a comparison over a word or a string, right, we would quote it with single quotes and then say, let's say echo dot. And so you get the product for this. So I have not written any code to do any of these querying. Right? These are out of the box provided by Odata, right? And we are just leveraging it. Right? So this is how easy it is. Right? All kind of querying and filtering that you would want to do, you can just do it through URLs here. So let's say you want to see all the reviews for all the products. So you'll just do expand on this here and you'll call it reviews. And so for each of the product, you have the reviews showing up. Now let's say, you can do some more nested filtering as well. Right? I'll show one tier, but let's say your navigations are 2 tier, 3 tier, or 4 tier. You can keep going across and filtering your data as required. So I'm doing an expand on reviews, but I only want to see reviews, which match a certain condition for me. For example, I only want to see those reviews where the title EQ say good, right? And so there's no review showing up because none of them match. So this is how you can do nested filtering on the navigational property, which is not your primary entity here, right? So reviews. Then there are some very, basic items. Let's say, there are 3 entries. You don't want the first few entries, right? And you only want the next 1 or 2 entries. So here you skip the first entry, you get the second entry, and then you skip the third entries as well. If you want all the entries, beyond the first one, then you just do top 2 and you get the remaining 2 entries. If you just do skip 1, right, it'll just skip the first entry and give you all the rest of all the entries. Similarly, you can say, I just want the first 2 entries and discard the rest. You can do some order bys as well. So $order by equal to let's say name. So now it is doing order by name in ascending order by default. You can also, sorry, you can also choose to do it in descending order. And now if you see, it's reversed, right? So you have 2, 3, 1 as the IDs instead of 1, 2, 3. Right? And then so you can mix and match. You do a order by, and then you say, I just want the first entry, you know, from the order. So this is how you can build all kinds of querying that you would need. One thing in my slides that I talked about is, reducing the response size and getting only the limited data, let's say for a mobile screen or something. Excuse me. So that was done through the select command. So let's see that an example of that as well. So $select is equals to name. So here what I now see is all the entries, but I only get name out of it. Right? So if you see the response size is heavily reduced. There's only names that are coming up, not the IDs or anything else. If I want multiple, then I just do name comma ID, and then it gives me the ID as well as the name. Right. So yeah, if there are any questions around, if you want to see some more querying of some more complex logics, I can take up those questions. But otherwise, this is what I wanted to cover today.
Yeah, if there are any questions, even with respect to like, think of what you could query, like some scenarios that folks have been working on, you can always put in the Q&A. There is one question though, Abhishek and the
Mhm.
team. Once the C# class inherits from OData,
Mhm.
is all this functionality available out of the box?
Yes. So as soon as you say Odata controller inherit, right, all the functionalities of Odata is provided into this controller, right? And as soon as you say enable query on this method, all querying capabilities are enabled on this method. Right? So if I don't do this, right, then I don't get any of the querying capabilities that I showed today. So this is the attribute that would enable the query, because even with OData, you can still do post, patch, put, delete, and all of those. Right? But the logic you would write in a post call or a delete call, you can do it without OData as well. Right? Where OData adds immediate value is building a querying language. Right? It gives you out of the box querying language with this enable query attribute. Right? Does that answer the question? If there is any other follow up on that, I'm happy to take that as well.
Yeah, not that I can see. I think we should be good to go.
All right, I'll stop sharing and pass on to Vikas. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Abhishek.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks, Ravi. So I may not be able to turn on the video because of the network bandwidth problem right now, but let me share my screen real quick. Do let me know once my, hello?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah,
You
sure.
can share it.
So do let me know once my screen is visible.
Yeah, we are able to see your screen, Vikas.
Okay, thank you. So like till now we have seen the like development of the API and development on the filters on that and everything. But the ultimate objective, it comes like, is it working or not? And that is very important. Otherwise, it will not make any sense if it doesn't work. So for that one, we have a very amazing tool called Postman for the API testing purpose. And so these are the points that we will be following up for the testing purposes. We will be understanding what Postman is, a couple of frequently used functionalities of the Postman. We are going to create a collection. We are going to test an API. And now this Postman is a desktop tool that anyone can install it. But right now we have this our CI/CD pipelines and everything, and our API should be working over there also. So to help us over there, there is a tool called Newman. It is from Postman only, but it is a command line tool which can be easily integrated in the CI/CD pipelines, and After that, and after understanding a little bit on the Newman, we will be generating our reports, an HTML report to check that how many tests are failing, how many tests are working, and how to report them. So this is how Postman looks. I think most of us are already familiar of it. We can simply start with a new request. We can have a request, a collection, or environment. So for purpose of this demo, we'll be going with a basic request. Here you can create a request, or simply you can just come here and add it from here. I like to do it from here, quite handy from here. Just simply just copy paste and you hit it. You'll get the response. The response will be containing what is the size the response took, what is the time that took, and what is the status. Now, second thing is in Postman, we have a thing called environments. So let's say you have like 50, 60 odd APIs, and like you don't want, and you want to add some more. And as Abhishek said, like we have OData with us, we just have to change the filters and everything. So why do we have to repeat this one? So we can just simply highlight this one, and Postman will give us a really nice icon set as a variable. Where you want to set it to, we set a new variable, what the scope of the variable, all you can do it here. And next time when you want to use this base path, you can just simply, let's set this one, base path demo, and let it be a global scope. Set the variable. Now next time, whenever you want to use this, you can just use this one. And after that, or simply you can just pull this complete one, because we have this one. Update that one. Send the request. Okay, so I didn't put the parameters over here. The request, and you get the data again. Now, second thing that I like about a lot about the Postman, we have multiple platforms to consume APIs, and those platforms could be developed in multiple languages. It can be in PHP, it can be in JavaScript, it can the consumer could be a C# or a Java file. And so what Postman provides us, a simple way. You see this right option code, you click on that, and it'll give you all the options what are available. So let's say you want to use a JavaScript fetch. It'll give you this. You just need to copy and paste code in your code base, and it'll be working. Similarly, for jQuery, we have this. Let's say Axios. So you will see there is a nice little import also for the Axios library, and the configurations are here. Right now, we don't have address in a request. Let's put a header. Let's put an authorization. Simple auth. If you go to code here, now you'll see the headers are also being set. So you can just simply test your APIs here and consume it wherever, like whatever language that you want to consume it to. Python, Ruby, there are multiple options. Like you can work around. C# is there, REST#, and the most basic that generally we use, the curl. So this is the one thing. Now we saw that there is an import option also. So let's copy this curl, paste it. There are multiple options. You can upload a JSON file. When we'll come to the collection, we'll get to know how to create this collection JSON file. A link, that is again the collection part, and the raw text. We'll just put our curl over here, continue. We'll take everything, and we can just simply import it. So sharing with our colleagues or the co-developers become fairly easy with this one. Now, this was about a little bit brief over the Postman. We'll come to the testing part. So these are the individual requests are there. Now we can combine all this request and create a collection. So a collection you can imagine as your all the APIs collected in one folder to make it organized in a better way. You can see there are multiple APIs that I have here. I cannot just maintain the history. Simply, I can just put it in the collection. And let's say one of your new colleagues joins in, or you have developed an API, a complete set of API, and you want to share it, you can just Hello, I'm still there.
Yes, Vikas, we can hear
Okay,
you.
sorry. Yeah. So you can just simply click on this and you'll got this share option. You can get public link, and this link, you can create a workspace in the team if you want to select only to a team, so it will be visible to whoever joined that workspace, or you can create a public link also. Let's update this link, and when we'll copy this one, and this one again we can see just that how it looks. We'll put the link over here, continue. It'll ask me this, but so I've already imported this collection, so I'm not going to do again. So this is about the collection. Third part comes the testing. So when we write the API and we run everything, now there might be possibilities that something might change over the time, some requirement might change, or let's say this is a skip or count that it should, right now it is only returning 3. But let's say someone introduced some bug, and we cannot just go around and going on the checking the each API that what the bug is happening and where it went wrong. And we sometimes we may not even know that something went wrong until unless the issue is being reported for that one. So for that, we have this testing very handy with this one. Whenever we start a test, we can use the prerequisite scripts also. But for this demo, we'll be using the basic test cases over here. Now you'll see this is the postman.test, the name of the test, the function, and this is the assertion. So we have this one is 3, data count is 3. And if you see the value 0.name is equal to breed over here. So that is our second assertion is equal to breed. We'll just run it and you'll see the test result 1 out of 1 pass. We can have like, let's say this is a get request. Now something changes or right now we are expecting 200 only because 201 and 202, 201 means something has been created and your get should not be doing that. So let's send a request. The request will execute successfully. So from the top, it looks that everything is working fine. But if you see the status coast had been changed. So here they will be, it was expected 20, 200, 100, 201. So we can expect this response codes. Similarly, we can just simply check for like if it is working or not. Now, this was on the each by each we wrote the test cases for I have wrote for like 8 or 9 test cases over here. But let's say you have 100 APIs and you are not going to run like each one by one by one. So here also your collection comes to help. You can just click on this, run collection. It'll ask you which one you want to run and which order you want to run. Let's say run all of them. I have put down some failed test cases intentionally just to show when we are going to see the report. So it will help us in understanding what the report says. So simply you can just run the complete collection and see which is working, which is not. So when you have like multiple APIs, you don't have to test each of one. You just run the collection. If something is breaking, you can see it over here and take it forward from there. For example, this one is breaking. We can just click on that, request URL, everything. What is the request body was, what is the request URL was, everything we can debug over here. Now, again, this one looks like we have to run a couple of things. We have to learn a couple of things. Here also, the postman code auto generation is for your rescue. You can just simply click on this icon. You'll get all the basic snippets over here. Let's check for, let's say we want to just check the content header. So you can just click on this. It'll so it is going to place the snippet where your cursor is. So you'll see the response to have the content type. Let's run this one. It has, because our response had the header, this one, content type. Let's say I'll just make it contents, or let's do a small typo. So our test will fail because the assistants are failing. So you'll get multiples over here. Even you'll get XML to JSON body conversion, code name has a string, like something like that, that the status is when it is 201, generally it has a created text also with it. So you can test the status text also. Or you can even simply just validate your complete data JSON schema. So whatever your schema is, you can define it over here, put it over here, and use it. Similarly, with the JSON schema, this one example is for the JSON schema, but you can check your data also. Now let's say that like just Abhishek just explained us that with the name only should be written when we put down the filters. Now let's say you have imagined the name, imagine this API as a name call, and it should only return name. Okay, or like the filter name is, but we can check it over here. Let's say some other name, for example, something else, let's put it. We can just associate with it. Equal. Now it should be undefined for us. Let's run this one. Test pass, just to make sure that it's working. Let's remove all this thing. This is a test name. Let's update this one also. Sorry, this one is not. This is the JSON. You can get the JSON from like this response.json. These are inbuilt variables for you. You'll see this is working fine. Now, this one was on the collection part. There are like this is the normal unit testing kind of stuff that we are doing over here, but you can put down the behavioral testing also. So like you can have a look into as your kind of assignment that how to do a behavioral testing in the Postman. Now the second thing comes that now there is a desktop tool, and there is a whenever a bug is raised or whenever an issue comes, there is a very good saying that comes from the dev side generally, that it is working on my machine. So to avoid that kind of situation, the Newmans come into the picture. Newman is a part, like is a tool from Postman only, but it is a command line interface. So it can be easily integrated with the CI/CD, and it can be help us to generate reports and everything. So to get the Newman, you just need to have Node installed in a machine or in the system wherever you are having, where you are going to use the Newman. You can install the Newman. And as we want the report also, so we are going to install the Newman reporter also. The collection link, as we saw, we can just get it from here. It is here. We can, so this one is only copied and pasted over there. So simply what we are saying that Newman run this one, get the result and put it into the this HTML extra reporter plugin, and this will be the title. Let's me copy this one. Let's paste this one. So let's run it. You see, so we had 9 requests were there. So 9 of 9 has been executed, and it is in the this folder. So we can go into this folder path. It will create a Newman folder here, and this will be the HTML report that has been generated. We can double click on it. You'll see we ran total 1 iteration, 6 of them which passed, 2 of them failed, and how many? Now this is for the one iteration. You can run multiple iteration. There could be a multiple assertions. So which one is failing? It has that information that which one failed, what failed. This was the error. That is the error that we get. And there are no skip test cases, so everything is working. It is working. We can again click on this, expand it. It'll give you everything, which was the URL, method, time it took, and what is the size of the request. It comes with theme also. So like if everyone like dark theme, light theme, you can use that. Yes. So that like the pretty much I had on the covering of the testing part of the APIs, how we can do with the help of Postman and the Newman, and how we can generate the reports for that.
I'm just checking if there are any questions so far.
Yes.
There are no open questions as of now. Yeah, thanks Ravindra for sharing the GitHub. Let me see if there are any questions on the chat. No, not as of now. Does anybody else have any other questions? If they would like to raise their hand, I can unmute them. Or if you also feel like you want to go through the video recording and then kind of do a follow along using the GitHub repo that has been shared as well, that would be quite useful. And then we can probably, take more questions on the Discord channel, as well as all three of them are alchemists and a part of our Discord channel. All right. Yeah, I don't see any other questions as of now on the group. So I think we are good to go. Is there anything else that you guys would want to cover? Ravindra, Abhishek, or Vikas, is there anything else that you are to cover?
Not at the moment, and I think this covers. I think once everyone probably take some time to go through the
Mm-hmm.
GitHub link and try it out. Maybe there are a few other questions that come up, and we are happy to answer any of them in Discord or on the GitHub repository itself, however it may be.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think that sounds great. So that's pretty much it for the day, folks. Thanks, Abhishek, Ravindra, and Vikas, for this insightful workshop. If there are any other links, you could also, as you are already part of the educational guild, there is a resources tab where you could
Mhm.
send more links or any other resources that could be helpful for folks in terms of understanding more about the subject. And of course, now that you're familiar with how to implement the APIs in a particular language, you can also experiment with Covalent APIs, try to kind of make them a part of your applications, try to be able to play around with that and do some testing, right, with that. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you so much to our presenters and speakers for taking out 1.5 hours of their time and being able to share their knowledge with our community. We are truly thankful for that. And thanks everyone for joining us who is curious to learn more. And yeah, we'll hope to host you all once again for various other interesting workshops. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, regarding the POAP, we'll be putting out we'll be putting out an announcement on how you can claim your POAPs, and we have all the user IDs who attended this workshop. So we'll be you can claim your POAP once it's all set up and done for us. So that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone, and yeah, have a great weekend. Yeah, and yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you, everyone.